this fascinating discourse, which was actually from a few weeks ago. I learned it. I learned it with David's second cousin, in New York 4 weeks ago, at the Chabad Rabbis Shluchim conference. It was the portion of Chai Sarah, which talks about the story of Eliezer coming back with a wife, with Rivka, who married Yitzchak, and he brings her into the tent. And Yitzchak sees that she resembles his mother, that she keeps the tradition going. With when she lights her Shabbat candles, miraculously the candles stay lit the entire week. They last all the way until the following Friday, and even then she lights new candles. And we had the big question, which was, what is the big difference between this miracle and the miracle of Hanukkah? We celebrate this every year. We make the biggest celebration for the miracle of Hanukkah. And here we have the same thing that happened week after week after week by Sarah and Rivka and probably Rachel and Leah, the other matriarchs also. So why are we making such a big deal out of the miracle of Hanukkah? And we said, 7 days or 8 days. Okay, big difference. Maybe it was, that the miracle was happening each day again and again. Many different ways to understand what the miracle was. We gave two main approaches. One approach was that it was a miracle in quantity, and each day the jug that had emptied to the bottom filled itself back up again right before the afternoon when the menorah is lit. When the menorah is usually lit, the oil filled back up again, and there was enough to stay lit for the next night, or that it was filled up in the jug that they were using refilled itself. Robin, you were with us last week.
Yes.
You were in the background, yeah.
I was down. Yeah, I was down in Palo Alto.
You were the main gist of the discussion. So the first thing was a quantity thing. The problem with the quantity thing is that even though that actually is unique above the miracle of the story of the matriarchs, but the matriarchs, it doesn't seem like we hear anything about it refilling itself again and again. It seems like it was just that the oil lasted for longer, that it burnt down slower. The problem with this is that then we have a situation where the oil is not oil from olives, is oil that was created miraculously, and that doesn't work according to what the Torah tells us. That there has to be crushed olives that make the oil, and that oil is what's used to make the fire of the menorah. Another way to understand a miracle, which is where we have the same question, which is the same as the story with the matriarchs, is that it was a miracle of quality. That the oil burns slower. Olive oil usually takes around the same amount of time for all olive oil to burn, and here it burned 8 times slower. So it was usually would burn down in 3 hours, burned down in 24 hours. And that way the oil lasted. Is that right? Yeah. 24 divided by 3 is 8. And then 1 second, go on. And that way the oil lasted the whole week. The problem with that is that then the cups are not full each night. They're only full the first night, but then it gets less the second night and less the third night. And according to the Torah, the cups the cups in the temple have to be always full. That's why we have a full Kiddush cup, a full cup of wine. It's one of the things that it symbolizes, and it has to be enough oil to burn over the whole day, and there wouldn't be enough oil for that. So that would be the problem with the second way. Go on, David.
No, why don't you finish the third way? But the question I have is, you and I had a back and forth, and I sent you.
You sent me an email, and I
did you understand it?
I didn't have a chance to respond to your email. I understood it. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I did a little bit of Googling to get a better idea. Wikipedia, a little bit of a better understanding of the very scientific definitions. But I shared it with friends, with colleagues that are learning this also. And what I realized was that I didn't really understand it when I taught it last week, or a point I was missing is that here we're dealing with something. This is very, very hard for us to get our heads around because we can't get our head around it. But here we're dealing with something which is two opposites happening at the same time. What I mean when I say two opposites happening at the same time is that the oil was burning. So all those things that usually happens with consumption of whatever's in the fire, which then goes out and creates which then burns and makes and will burn down whatever is being burnt. That is happening. That was happening. We're not saying that wasn't happening. It was happening fully according to the scientific definition of burning, of fire. That's what it means. At the same time, it wasn't burning. Go understand that. It was burning and it wasn't burning at the same time.
So that's like Moses with the burning bush. Right. He said that last week.
Yes, yeah, that's right. It's like the burning bush. And maybe we could actually ask a question, which is, this is not the first time this miracle happened with the burning bush. So why do we celebrate Hanukkah? Why don't we celebrate the burning bush? Good question.
Well, it's burning, but it's just not being consumed.
The same thing's happening with, well, it is being consumed, because burning means being consumed, according to the way David's explaining it. Meaning burning.
So I'll just say this briefly. So what burning is chemically is it breaks the bonds of some molecules and creates others and releases energy, which is the flame. So there's a conservation of both mass, the atoms, and of energy. And so we know that from science. It's proven. We can't create something from nothing. So in our world, we only rearrange things. And burning is a way of rearranging mass and energy. That's all it can do. And so for a certain amount of flame, you've got to break a certain number of bonds and molecules and put some others together. And that's what happens when we burn.
Right, and that's happening over there. That is fully happening. So there is consumption happening, but at the same time, the consumption is not happening.
And maybe it, right.
Happening and not happening at the same time. Burning and not burning at the same time.
Right.
Just like we say that the ark in the temple, the example we gave, or the way we tried to explain it, is that the ark in the temple was it took up space and it didn't take up space at the same time, because the measurements were 5 amos, 5 cubits from one wall to the wall of the ark, and 5 cubits from the other side of the ark to the other wall. But then if you measured the whole room, wall to wall, without the ark there, you had 10 cubits. So you're left with, so that's 2 times 5. So there's no space for the ark. But the ark did take up space. It took up 2.5 cubits. So it's taking up space, and it's not taking up space at the same time.
It's completely illogical.
It sounds ridiculous because it doesn't exist in our world, in the world that we know. But the point of it is that Hashem is able to make the finite and the infinite happening at the same time. David, does that clarify? Does that give a better?
It does. What it doesn't do for me is this idea that it has to be olive oil, because if truly the olive oil is burning, then what is it that's not burning? So I believe the miracle.
Also, the olive oil is not burning. The olive oil is burning, and the olive oil is not burning.
It is the miracle of doing 2 opposites at the same time, on and off, dark and light.
It's not that the olive oil is being recreated. That's the point. It's not that the olive oil is being recreated. The olive oil is burning, it's being consumed, and it's not burning and not being consumed at the same time. So the olive oil is still there. Yeah. So it exists and it doesn't exist at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, at least in our world, burning requires consumption or breaking of those bonds. So if it is burning, then by the laws of nature, something is getting consumed, and whatever is not getting consumed needs to somehow be replenishing it. So, or else it's just beyond our knowing. And so I'm willing to say it's beyond our knowing, but I'm hard to say that it's really burning, because burning, at least in our definition, if we call it burning, it only creates a flame through breaking molecules. So it might be creating a flame, but it's not actually burning according to the scientific definition of burning.
Do you think it's an illusion of burning?
I don't know what it is. It's a miracle, but
David, how
about burning is defined? You know, burning has a definition, and so if we use that word and we now are defining it differently, then we could call it burning miracle.
Not burning.
Not defining it differently.
Energy is being transformed and and let off. You could measure the energy that a burning candle is giving.
Exactly. And that energy in burning, at least in the way we know it, comes from breaking of the molecules, the longer molecules, and then you lose a little bit of it in making water and CO2. But so we know the mechanism of it. And so if we call it burning, we can only call it that if that mechanism is going. We could call it something else that looks like burning,
Right.
not burning. But burning has, at least at some level, a very specific definition beyond what we see.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. So I still.
What I believe. Here's what I believe. I believe that if the scientists, if the people in the people that the scientists that would take a look at this and look and try to measure the whole thing, they would measure burning according to the scientific definition of burning. Just like when somebody measured in the Holy of Holies, they measured 10 cubits long, and when they measured the ark, they measured 2.5 cubits long. The same way you measure with a ruler, you measure from one wall to the next. The same way on a more complex level, the scientists are measuring in the fire and figuring this out. And that what they're coming out with is that this is burning, is fully burning.
Well, the way that scientists measure burning is they look at the thing that's burning and they look at how much of it goes. They look at the energy, and this was in the formulas I sent you. They look at the energy produced, and then they look at the byproducts. So they look at all. So burning isn't just the flame. Burning is the three pieces. It's an equation.
You're
and
right.
So if they measured that, and yet this wasn't getting consumed, then it wouldn't be burning. I'm just saying scientifically.
Right. What I said was wrong. The scientists wouldn't be able to figure it out because they would look at they would compare this to that, and they would say this is not burnt. This is not being consumed. So that means that it's not burning. That means the fire is miraculous. But Hashem is telling us, or the way the Rebbe is explaining it is, there's an issue with the two other explanations. So the only way to explain it is that whether the scientists would realize it or not, scientifically it's burning. Meaning it is being consumed. It is being consumed, and it's not being consumed at the same time.
Right.
So you're right. We're left in a situation where the scientists will say this is a miraculous fire. This is the wood. This is the hand of God. So what we're explaining is it is the hand of God.
But I still have trouble
in creating more quantity. It's not the hand of God in creating in qualifying, making the olive oil have more quality. Rather, it's the hand of God in making it burn, consume, and not consume at the same time.
But I still have trouble with the argument that God, that in that miracle, it's only the olive oil, the same olive oil that's doing all that. In other words, I don't believe that when the sages did this, they knew our science. They actually knew a different type of science. And I believe if those sages had our information, they would come to a different explanation of the miracle. And things have changed through time as science develops. At least my understanding of Chabad is that it's supposed to follow the proven science. And so I believe that they wouldn't say it had to be olive oil crushed by human beings in the same olive oil. They could say if it's olive oil burning, then divinely they could have created more of it or something in there. But I don't think they could explain it this way because it's just not consistent with burning of olive oil, of the olive oil that was in there.
I'm not sure you're right. Meaning you're saying that the definition of the Torah that we this kind of proven science we agree with. Of course we agree with it, but we're not saying otherwise. We're just saying that that's happening, and at the same time it's not happening. That doesn't exist in science, right? That doesn't exist in science because it's against science. It's against the world. It's finding what we know as natural as what fits with the definition of science.
Right, and I agree with that. But what I don't agree with is that when it's that miracle that we can't understand, and it is happening and it's not happening, then I don't think we can say that the mechanism by which the miracle happens doesn't necessarily include additional olive oil that looks like it's not. In other words, we're telling ourselves that God can't put in olive oil because it's got to be from man in this mechanism. And I just don't think that we know enough that this is part of the humility of man to say, this is unknown. This isn't something that the sages can figure out. This is something we have to bow down, that only the divine knows how that miracle happens. And we can't say.
I don't understand. Why can't we ask questions on all the other explanations, which are divine? We're asking questions on the other ones, and we're coming out with an explanation which we are bowing down to the fullest. We're bowing down to the fullest. We're saying this is, we must accept that this is natural. We accept the science. We can't not accept the science, because if we don't accept the science, we are going against the way Hashem wants us to do the mitzvahs. Hashem wants us to do the mitzvahs in the world that we living with the scientific limitations that there are, definitions that there are. We have to accept that. And at the same time, we have to accept everything in the Torah. And everything in the Torah tells us that the cup of thing has to be full. The oil has to be full. And that it has to be olive oil. So now, when we put all those things together, we have only one way to say it.
That's what I don't buy. I don't buy that the fact that it has to be olive oil means that the human being had to make it from the olives themselves. In other words, I don't see the definition of olive oil being what you're calling it. So I buy all the rest of it. But I think that's an extra stringency that doesn't seem provable.
Okay. I mean, olives, why you said last week, maybe the Hashem is squeezing the olives invisibly and squeezing them into the cup. But again, we follow the laws of nature in the temple. Everything follows the laws of nature.
But we do, we can make meat now scientifically, not in a cow, but it can be meat, and it can be cow meat. Like we're able to reconstruct what's in the laws of nature allow us to do things in what would look like the not natural way and create the same substance. So what I'm saying is, if we can do it as human beings, surely God can do it. Anyway, I'm going to stop there, but I'm just saying, when I kind of look at it through a lens that includes
cow meat, not from a cow. Right.
Yes.
So here we're being told that we have to squeeze olives. So you can't create olives not from an olive. You can.
Well,
but
did we say that Hashem can't squeeze olives? Did it say it has to be olive oil squeezed by man?
Causes lamar, crushed for the light. And the Torah tells us specific definitions of how the olives have to be crushed. They have to be crushed in a specific way.
By human beings?
Olives from specific trees.
Right. By human beings?
Everything is by human beings. We're not allowed to. If there's a big question in Jewish law, if a monkey is allowed to wash your hands for bread.
Okay, so the definition of olive oil is only crushed by human beings. So if God were to crush the olives and do that, that wouldn't be olive oil. That's what you're saying through Torah law.
Being squeezed into the cup, and there's a way for the human beings to see the oil being squeezed in. Then we have a question: is it okay if God squeezes the olives or if somebody else squeezes olives? But we didn't see any olives away.
Well, we didn't even see if the cups went down. We didn't see anything.
Right. We're bowing down over here. That's what I think you're having trouble with. We're bowing down, meaning we're accepting, we're following the laws of nature and science 100%. Even if you're going to tell me that we can recreate cow meat not from a cow, the fact is that we're doing something that we can see and we can touch and we can feel. That's the world that we live in, a world where we're able to touch things physically and feel things or smell things, hear things, use our senses. So we're following those laws of nature, and at the same time, we're following the laws of the Torah that there's a specific definition for things. And when the Torah says one day, it means one day. And when the Torah says olives, it means olives. When the Torah says human, it means human. And that these are things which might not fit. Again, if we look at everything that's going on, the scientists would come out with a question. They would say, we're going to be going a walking question. We have no way to answer this. And we're saying there is no way to answer this besides to tell us that Hashem is allowing us to keep the natural form and at the same time to go out of the nature. And the example for that is the Ark in the Holy of Holies. where we have a measurement that it takes up space, and we have a measurement that it doesn't take up space. Both measurements are happening at the same time. Because I mean, we can get into the details of the scientific details of with the oil, but let's talk about the Holy of Holies. It's a much more simple example. So yes, we're gonna go on with the question is that we don't understand this. We don't understand this. But Hashem is giving us the opportunity to measure. He wants us to measure. He wants us to see it. He wants us to understand that this only happens when you. And this is the next point of this whole talk, which is this only happens when we follow the law. We follow the rules that Hashem told us. The ark had to be 2.5 cubits long in order for it not to take up space. Because if it would be any other size, then it wouldn't be a kosher ark. And if it wouldn't be a kosher ark, it would take up space. Because Hashem said, make it like this, and I will make the miracle happen. You do what I asked you to do, and I'll make the miracle happen. You take the olives, squeeze the olives, get real oil. Go out on an 8-day detour to go find new olives. You do what you have to do. You light the candles. I'll keep the laws of Torah exactly the way Torah wants you to be. There's another. What I get to another point. I was about to say something else, but it's not. And when you do,
Okay.
go on, when you do that, I will make the miracle that you'll be able to see that this is the hand of Hashem. There's no other way to see this. The hand of Hashem, which is not just the hand of Hashem, which is beyond nature. The hand of Hashem that brings nature together with beyond nature. Noga, sorry.
I was just wanting to say that it would be interesting to recognize that Hanukkah starts on Kaf Hei B'Kislev, which is 25 B'Kislev, and Christmas starts on 25 of December.
Okay.
That's all.
The connection to what we say.
I'm just looking online at things about the Pachas Shemen. And
the interesting thing is that in Hanukkah, there's a lot of discussion about it. It says that for some reason, why do we start lighting the menorah on the 24th of Kislev, on the Chavdal Kislev?
That's because we always do everything from the evening before, because for us, the Jewish day starts in the evening of the day before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if they won the war on the 25th, then they lit the menorah on the next day, but they lit the menorah on that night. But I was about to share a question that it says in the somewhere, but I forgot what the question is. But there is a debate, but there's a discussion about whether it was the 24th or the 25th when the miracle happened.
There's so many debates. There's also a debate about whether you're supposed to light the candles from right to left or from left to right, and
Right,
do it from right to left.
Hillel and Shammai, right?
And then we do the first candle every time. But
yeah,
there's a question here. There's a question here. Is that a historical event, or was it a legend? So I thought it was just interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the modern Hanukkah miracle, which is I had enough sufganiyat for 8 days, but they only lasted 1 day.
That's very natural.
True, it's not a miracle.
Anyways, I think we covered 196 sufganiyot yesterday. So,
where did you get your sufganiyot from?
Western Kosher in Los Angeles.
Oh,
wow!
They send us once a month. They send us meat and chicken and cheeses, all sorts of things. We send them. There's a kosher, or they do deliveries in San Francisco and Pleasanton. If anybody ever needs, big, wants to get some things that they can't get in the area and they want to get for cheaper than the local stores, Oakland Kosher is a great store. But sometimes you want to buy a lot of things; it's a bit expensive. You're welcome to let us know, and we can add you to. We can help you pick up your order for you from these places.
Mm-hmm.
We pick up families sometimes in El Cerrito that keep kosher.
Thank you.
So so we got them a couple of weeks ago. We freeze them until Hanukkah.
Mm.
We have some if you want to try.
I can't really eat them, but we got some from Donut Time. And according to my grandchildren, they were wonderful.
Well, I drove last week. I drove down to Izzy's in Palo Alto to get a whole lot of stuff, including sufganiyat. And when I got home, they left out all the sufganiyat. I was very upset, including other things. After going to Palo, and then last week, I think it was on Thursday, yeah, I drove into San Francisco to the hummus bodega, and ordered and picked up, among other things, 6 sufganiyat, counted them to make sure I had them, got home, no jam. So, Rabbi,
Did you fill them up with jam?
They
You
did
could
not fill. They
you
had
could just-
plain. Well, no, I didn't do that. I
You
didn't.
just do that. You could just take a
I
thing.
know, or put it on top of it. It just, this is my journey to get sufganiyat. So my first ones were at Rabbi Yankees. Thank goodness. Thank you. I just pigged out.
The next part of this, which is, what is the message of all of this? What is the message from this whole teaching? So it's really very relevant. This idea that, first of all, I mean, the idea that we are asked, that we asked last week, and know that you like the question. Why do we care so much about all the limitation of the mitzvahs? You have to do this, do things at a certain time, in a certain place, in a certain way, in a certain amount, and all these things. And it's like, God, are you seriously so limited? Like, you created the whole world. You're the God of everyone. I really need to specifically eat the matzah after it gets dark, and I specifically need to light 1 candle on my menorah, or not 2 candles, and it has to burn for at least 30 minutes, and I have to all these things which are it's a bit much. Really, we should just be able to connect to Hashem in our heart. We know that Hashem is beyond nature. So let's go out of let's do some psychedelics. No, let's go out of nature. Let's meditate. Let's connect with Hashem. Go beyond our limitations, and we realize that we live in such a finite world. We're so limited. We're so bound down. Ultimately, Hashem is much higher than that. All we have to do is live on a higher plane, be more connected in our hearts, and then we'll be connected to Hashem. So this is really the message over here. This is not the message that the Rebbe says. It's another message I'm going to share in a second. But I think something which is really relevant, and something that I have difficulty with sometimes, I think we all do, is that Hashem wants to show us. This is the point. Is Hashem wants to show us that the ultimate is being down here in the world. The ultimate is doing things just like we live in a limited way. We live in a finite world where there is time and there is space, and these things make a difference to us. And we have a certain amount of energy, and we have a certain amount of time and a certain amount of space, and we do things at specific times. And we push off lunch for 10, 20 minutes, and we're extra hungry. And if we haven't had our coffee in the morning, it's terrible. So the same thing, and Hashem wants us to do the mitzvahs in the same way, to live with God in our lives in a very down-to-earth, practical way, that it affects every part of our lives in the specific limitations that we live in. And so we don't have the answers for everything. We don't understand specifically why this has to be done, and we're not going to be able to answer every single thing. We can look at the Jewish law, we can look at the Talmud, we can look at the Kabbalah, we can try to find deeper meanings behind many things. But the main point is that Hashem is showing us that you can be down here in the world, you can be down to earth person that goes according to science and lives your life in the world, and at the same time you can be deeply connected to Hashem, because Hashem will shine through those specific parts of your life, specifically in your limitation, in your time management, in your energy preservation. Hashem will be able to show you how you can live your life according to the way a Jew should live, connected to God, even in that. There's an idea, that there are times. This is really the message from the Rebbe. There are times when we are supposed to go out of ourselves. We are supposed to go out of our limitations. There is time every day for meditation. There is time every day where we are supposed to, say the Shema, do the prayers, and ground ourselves in our connection with Hashem. And during that time, the halacha, the Talmud tells us, it's like we're standing in front of the king. We're not allowed to speak to anyone, make sign language to anyone. We're all doing anything that would be out of our prayer and meditation and connection with Hashem is going against God. It's like you're standing in front of the king and you're busy winking to people. This is not the time for it. When you're saying Shema, there's only one thing in the world, and that's Hashem. To a certain degree, we are ignoring the limitations of the world when we do that work, when we do the prayers, when we do the meditation, when we do certain mitzvahs. Well, not so much mitzvahs, but more prayer and Torah study. But there's a time for that, and then there's a time for going into the world. The challenge that a lot of people have is that we see that time or that space, which is the synagogue, or if we talk in times of the year, we call it Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, or talk about it in the connection with our day. We'll say it's maybe the prayers at the beginning of the day. We see it as a disjointed. We see it as something which is separate from the rest of the day. The rest of the day is now we're going into the world. Don't talk to me about God now. Now I'm busy with my life. Now don't tell me about mitzvahs and life. Now I'm busy with my business. I'm dealing with the world. We're following the news. We see what's happening. This is the world that we live in. So don't tell me about God right now. When I go to synagogue, I'll do the godly things. When I do my prayers, right now I'm connected to the world. There are times when that is more okay. There are times in history, in general, when that was more okay, and times when we were able to feel godliness in a more present way in the world. People were more spiritual, more refined. We had the temple where we saw miracles taking place. We saw the hand of Hashem. So there was time for that kind of approach, because we lived because we were so permeated with our connection to Hashem. We were able to be grounded even in the world, even in the outside world, even in the dark world, with the prayer that we did in the morning. That was enough. That was enough to ground us. When we look at the miracle, we look at the different ways of understanding the miracle. The first way is a miracle of quantity. What's happening is the miracle is only happening once or 8 times at the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, I mean. The oil's filling up. Now for the next 24 hours, we're good. There's no miracles happening. The oil has been filled up, and now it's staying lit. And again, in 24 hours from now, it will fill up again, and the miracle will happen at the beginning of each day, one time. So it's not noticeable every moment. It's only noticeable for somebody who happened to be in the temple at that time will see, wow, the oil filled back up. Otherwise, you wouldn't know that the oil filled up by Hashem. You might think that somebody else filled it up. In the second way, with the quality, everybody will notice that the miracle is happening. You come and you spend a few minutes standing and you see that it's burning slower than regular oil burns. So it's a miracle that we're able to see constantly. It's always constantly apparent. But again, the miracle, it didn't happen. The miracle had only happened at the beginning of Hanukkah when God changed the quality of the oil. The miracle only happened once, but we're able to see the miracle constantly. In the third way, the miracle is happening every moment. Because we're following the laws of nature, and we're also not at the same time. We're also going above nature at the same time. So every moment the miracle is happening. And that's where we end up with a real realization that the hand of Hashem is in this. That symbolizes a time when the world is dark. When the world is where the world is in a way contradictory to Hashem. The Torah tells you to do one thing, and nature is telling me that it's only possible to do something else. The Torah tells me use real olives and squeeze those olives and fill up the cup and do all those things. And nature is telling me there is not enough oil to burn, so you're going to be out of it in one day, or we're going to have to go against those laws of the Torah to make it miraculous oil or something else. The world is a contradiction, so to speak, to living your life according to connecting with Hashem. And here Hashem tells us it's not enough just to have the miracle once. It's not enough to have the miracle at the beginning of the day. It's not enough for the miracle to happen once and for you to be able to see the hand of Hashem in it. You see, wow, I know that the fact is that even though the world is so dark and so much, there's so much, it's so hidden, godliness is so hidden, I know that really, the hand of Hashem is in this. I see the hand of Hashem in many things. Fine. But that's not enough in a time when the world is dark in a way that we don't see the hand of Hashem. And then what we need is the miracle to be every moment. We need to constantly be that miracle. We each need to be that miracle. We are that. We are that olive oil. We are that core, that crushed olive oil. The soul of a Jew represents that. And we need to constantly be in this place that we live in a world which seems to be a world which negates God, which goes against God. It's a dark world. At the same time, we live our lives according to the way Hashem wants. We're not just inspired by our prayers or grounded by our prayers. We are living right now connected with Hashem. In my business, in my life, in everything that I do, even though it's not something specifically Jewish, the hand of Hashem is felt in it, that we carry the paradox. That Hashem is allowing us to be in a world which seems to negate him, and at the same time to be connected with him. And that's the miracle of today, in today's time, is that we're able to do that. That we look and in a way that we see how we can be in the world, and at the same time we can be alive as a Jew. Doesn't mean we don't have to live in the shtetl. We can live in America, we can live in El Cerrito, California, and be connected to Hashem fully in our life, in this limited, dark world, and interact with the world and deal with the world and not push away the world, not negate the world at the same time. That's the miracle of the real miracle of Hanukkah. Go on, David.
Good.
Well, I think it's very interesting. I was taught once in a Kabbalistic teaching that there are these normal miracles, the parting of the Red Sea, the Hanukkah thing that we're talking about here, but then there's hidden miracles. And the hidden miracles are, where does our fruit come? How does a flower grow? How do we stay alive moment to moment to moment? So this thing that Hashem is doing a constant miracle is actually with us all the time in everything, but we're blind to it. We don't see it. We don't look at it. So we need Hanukkah to remind us in what you're talking about through this miraculous thing there, instead of seeing that what's in front of us all the time is equally miraculous. Right.
That's what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. He says, the miracle of the splitting of the sea saying split is actually not as big of a miracle of the creation of the world, of something from nothing. Because fine, the nature of water is that it goes downwards, that it doesn't stand. So God changed the nature for a few hours. He made the water stand up straight. Maybe he blew a strong wind. The world is being recreated every moment. What's a bigger miracle than that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's changing the focus of our lenses of how we look at everything around us. So this moment to moment piece that you're talking about is not that far from us if we just change our angle.
A step, which is that specifically through being in the dark world, that is how we create the miracle. If we go out of the world, if we don't make the measurements of the ark and we don't make real olives, then we're not in the world. You're not in the world. No, that's not good. You have to be in the world. You have to be in the world. You have to interact with the world. You have to connect with the world. That's the Hashem put us in this world. Hashem wants us to be alive. We're sad when somebody passes away. It's a sad thing. Yes, they're more higher. Their soul is more connected. They see the world in a higher place. You can have all those visions, but Hashem wants us to be down here in the world. That is the greatest possible thing, beyond Moses in the heavens. Because specifically through those limitations, we will create the miracle. We will create space for God to show us his hand in ways which is beyond nature and in nature at the same time.
Wow, versus the angels who live in a higher realm without the natural world. So they're experiencing all the time, I guess, miracles. When anything happens, it's a miracle because it has nothing to do with the natural world.
Experiencing miracles. The question is, where's the biggest miracle? And that biggest miracle is in the way we live our lives through the limitation, and at the same time be able to be beyond that. Yep.
Very good.
Thank you for joining. I don't know, it's fine if we didn't, but I think we got past that issue that we had. I think this only brings out even stronger, David, as a scientist, how seriously we take the laws of nature and science, and we don't want to negate them. And you're telling me something from nothing, telling me that God created something invisible, and we can't touch it, and we can't feel it, and we can't sense it, is basically negating science.
I have to go actually, but I'll see you guys next week.
Hey, Noga, thanks for coming. Yeah. Anyways,
Thank you, Rabbi.
More food for thought.
yeah. Have a good week. Nice
Thank
having you.
you. Oh,
Happy-
I'll see you at the parade.
Wonderful.
Good.
Very good. Okay.
Hope to see you both too, David, George, or at least soon. Bye.
Okay, bye now.
Hanukkah, all the best. Bye now.